I flew in a circle around the entire planet. Here's how it changed my life. You might be thinking, why do a trip of this scale? Was it just a glorified vacation? What's the point in all this? There's many ways I can answer this, but this short film is my best response to these questions. What are you going to do with your life? The question that will dawn upon every single human being during their lifetime. This is a time where this question weighs heavy on a lot of us. After leaving high school, you're left with the choice of going to university or going straight to the real world. I grew up trying many art forms, from drawing to painting to music to clothing design, and in high school I started learning about photography and filmmaking, and I got decent at it pretty quickly. Film school was the next step for me. However, senior year ended, but I had already achieved my post-college goal of working as a photographer and filmmaker. What's the point in going to university now? I'd already autistically studied all the ins and outs of photo and filmmaking on my own time from YouTube and personal practice after school for 3 years. What does one even do now? I've always liked doing things that most people will never experience. Not using the sidewalk and walking in the grass, making money without a traditional job, or flying so far away from home that I just end up circling the entire fucking planet. I like Elon Musk's thoughts on how to live life.
Try to be useful. Do things that are useful to your fellow human beings. Try to have a positive net contribution to society.
This made me think about how I could be as productive of a member of society and be a net positive to future generations. And in the last few years, I've given a lot of time to figuring out how to be as useful as possible to humanity. However, there's a problem here. I was focusing too much on trying to help the world before I even help myself. You need to fully help yourself before you can even help your friends or family, let alone the world. You need your own understanding of the world and life itself. Understand everybody's perspective on life to come to your own conclusion on the best way to live it. In a sense, the world became my university. I circled the planet in 72 days during fall 2022 and have now basically stepped on every continent on Earth. These are 9 countries that changed my understanding of life. San Francisco, USA, the tech capital of the world, arguably the most influential community on Earth, the birthplace of the personal computer, the smartphone, and the internet, as well as my birthplace. The Bay Area Silicon Valley is my home. We'll touch more on my new understanding of my hometown after seeing the rest of the world. Amsterdam, Netherlands, the land of bikes, canals, and shit weather. After visiting 5 European capitals, Amsterdam has become my favorite city in Europe. I'd say the most important thing Amsterdam has taught me is your environment greatly affects how you live your life. After living in America for 2 decades in those classic American suburbs where you need a car to get anywhere, and after seeing Amsterdam's European walkable city, it made me realize I was in a completely different headspace in America and Europe. In the US, we have cities made for cars. In Amsterdam, they have a city made for people. I've heard people say that Amsterdam feels more like a small village rather than a giant capital city. There was a video on YouTube saying that it subconsciously makes you feel happier in general, and I'm finding that to be true. I say it comes down to 5 things. 1. Walkable and bikeable city. Again, in the US you need a car to get anywhere. Cars have the right of way in the streets, and you're considered broke if you're on public transportation. Amsterdam is the bike capital of the world. Everybody rides a bike in Amsterdam. There are more bikes than cars, even more bikes than people. Cyclists have priority in the streets. It was eye-opening to see a city that prioritizes people over cars. It feels good to walk or bike every day to the grocery store, your friend's house, or a park since everything is so close. The complete opposite American example of Amsterdam would be Texas. My friends in Austin have told me that it's normal to drive 20 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour just to go to school, the mall, or a friend's house. Also, the Dutch exercise more than any other country on Earth because they're walking and biking every day. You don't get sucked into the black hole of inactivity, but this lifestyle is only possible if your city's designed for it. Ask yourself, which lifestyle sounds better to you? 2. Greenery. There isn't an extreme amount of greenery in the city, but it's enough to make you feel good that you see it. There are studies that show us that living close to greenery is linked to lower levels of anxiety and depression, so it makes sense that it feels good to even see the color green. 3. Water. Being close to water feels good. Again, studies tell us that being close to water has its mental health benefits. Makes sense as to why it was such a peaceful way to start the day by sitting on the canal every morning during my time in Amsterdam. 4. The mix of residential and business spaces. In the US, there are zoning laws that separate people's homes and businesses into separate areas of the city, which make you need a car. In Amsterdam, groceries, friends, laundromats, restaurants, bars, appointments are always just a 5-minute walk or bike ride away. It was cool to stay in a 4th floor apartment and walk downstairs to the 1st floor to eat at the 3 restaurants down the street.
And 5, this fucking roof terrace. This shit is mother.
This roof terrace actually belongs to Sandrine, a French woman I met on couch surfing, living in Amsterdam for over 20 years. I stayed at her apartment in a spare room she offered me. She also had 2 roommates, Ben from Peru and Matthew from Canada. All 3 of them were studying or worked in the field of science and biology. It was interesting to stay in an Amsterdam apartment with 3 scientists and listen to the things they talk about. Sandrine has been to 38 countries, but the most unique thing about her was her openness to hosting travelers. Her couchsurfing profile says that she's hosted 86 people from 34 countries in the last decade. She actually told me that those were just the people who left reviews. I asked her why she was so open to hosting so many people in her home. As you can already tell from everywhere she's been to, she loves to travel. She told me that opening her home to travelers was another way to experience the world from home. I really admire Sandrine's hospitality to the world, and she's inspired me to be more open to receiving the world in my home. She also put me onto Ethiopian food. That shit was gas. Ben is the Peruvian guy that was studying biology in Amsterdam and was about to get a scholarship and a visa to study in Las Vegas. We had some insightful conversations over dinner during my time in Amsterdam. He's a cool guy. I only had 2 conversations with Matthew, the Canadian guy, at the beginning and the last day of my stay with him, because he had left to Austria for a COVID vaccine conference. He's quite the eccentric character. One thing he's very good at is telling an engaging story that keeps you at the edge of your seat. When he came back from Vienna, he said his trip was like a James Bond movie. The conversations with Matthew were the ones where you gotta leave your phones in the fridge and go upstairs to the roof terrace to discuss certain classified topics. Those are the real good ones. The short time I spent talking to Matthew was deep and to the point. I could tell this man was going places. The people I met in Amsterdam made the trip a very special one. What can I say? I love Amsterdam. This was my 2nd time visiting the city, and it's got me looking forward to making this place my summer home for years to come. I love this city for teaching me that there are different ways of life to be lived. Thank you, Amsterdam. Paris, the city of love, as they say, the home of some of the greatest artists of the 20th century. Picasso, Hemingway, Dali, Fitzgerald. Is Paris over-romanticized? One could say that. There are lots of rats, lots of garbage, eccentric characters. There's a term called Paris syndrome, where people feel a sense of disappointment after visiting for the first time, because the city was not what they had expected. So why do so many people from all corners of the world come to visit this city? I can only speak for myself. As an artist, I have to say I love Paris for one reason. Art. Whoever designed this city definitely knew what they were doing with the aesthetics of this place. Paris has been the best example I've seen of an aesthetically pleasing city to live in. This place has given me an appreciation for living in a visually aesthetic city. Some people call this place an open museum because of its Haussmann-style buildings. As a photographer speaking, any photos you get with your friends in the streets will definitely be Instagram worthy for you social media worshippers. Paris has taught me that if you want to make an iconic city, you need iconic attractions. I'll describe my favorite things about Paris as the iconic French triad that give the city a pleasant artistic touch. 1.
La Tour Eiffel.
Arguably the most touristy attraction on earth. Those nights in Paris with the sparkling Eiffel Tower lights are moments I'll remember forever. 2.
Musée du Louvre.
The home of the Mona Lisa and an endless maze of art with a classy Renaissance touch. The Great Pyramids of Paris. There's something extremely pleasant about those glass pyramids next to those old French buildings. 3.
Arc de Triomphe.
A building to honor those who fought and died for France during the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars. You'll see infinite tourists here standing in the middle of the street to get a picture with the Arc. France's history also holds a valuable lesson we can still learn from today. The French Revolution was a result of the people being fed up with the greedy governments. The bottom class of society had no say in how government was run and were heavily taxed, so the elite of society could use their money to fund their luxurious lifestyle while the rest were starving. It ended in tens of thousands being guillotined, including the last king and queen of France. That's a very short and oversimplified summary of the conflict, but it's a reminder of how much power we the people hold when we say enough is enough. Farah was the coolest guy I met in Paris. We met at my hostel while he was staying there looking for an apartment in Paris. He's an actor and teacher. A genuine, friendly, inviting man that gave me local insights to Paris and French culture. During our time in the hostel, I saw him talking to everybody, answering travelers' questions, giving recommendations on what to do. He was kind of like the dad of the hostel while I was there. I'm looking forward to showing you around San Francisco when you come to the States, man. Se sent bien? Perhaps I won't value this as much in the future as this becomes my new normal, but moments like these add some spice to life. Sitting in a room with travelers from Ireland, Canada, Costa Rica, the Caribbean, and a French dude makes life that much more interesting. Katie here is actually the one that inspired me to start taking Polaroids halfway through the trip, after she got this one of us. This is the 35-year-old fine that she got when she tried to finesse a discounted metro ticket she wasn't eligible for her first day in Paris. The difference between a regular ticket and the one she bought was €2 and €1. Nice one, Katie. A couple other interesting characters in the Paris story were Genevieve and Regular Boy. One night after being in the city, I was taking the metro back to the hostel and I got off at the wrong station. I had to get back on the street and walk 5 minutes to the right station. On this walk, I saw a group of 5 dudes posted on the block playing beats on a speaker and freestyling in French. I had no idea what they were saying, but I stopped and started hyping them up on their freestyles. I asked who they were and what they did. Genevieve and Regular Boy gave me their Instagrams and told me they were rappers. Apparently they had a decent audience as well, showing up to their shows. They showed me some songs they made that day, and I showed them some of mine, and I was on my way. Geneviève's song, Vibe, put me onto Jersey club music, which seemed like the world was just starting to catch on to.
I just wanna rock.
Shout out to the boys. This was also my second time in Paris. I had to come back because even though this city has its cons, it's still a nice place to stop in when you're in Europe. As an artist, I understand why people like Picasso and Salvador Dali spent time of their lives here. Perhaps I'll join that bandwagon and add myself to that list one day. Milan, Italy. I loved every place I visited during this trip, but technically speaking, one city had to come out at the bottom of my favorites list. The biggest takeaway from Milan was that some cities really are overrated. Again, I loved visiting Milan. It was awesome to finally see Italy for the first time, but I felt like I ran out of things to do by like day 3. My impression of Milan all my life was this fashion capital where you see the most dripped out civilians in Europe because of high fashion ads or clothes that said Milan on them. To be honest, it was rather underwhelming. The main attraction here is called Piazza del Duomo. It's a plaza with the Milan Cathedral and the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele, which is the famous shopping spot with Louis Vuitton, Dior, Prada, Chanel, Gucci, Moncler, and my favorite part, the Leonardo da Vinci Museum. This man was actually a big reason why I wanted to visit Milan. I wanted to walk the streets he walked. I wanted to see if I could gain some genius insight from setting my feet where his were. But honestly, it didn't really work. It was still super cool to see the museum they dedicated to his life though. I've studied this man before coming here, but seeing physical models of his experiments in person and seeing copies of his notes was just something else. Da Vinci being a painter, an architect, an anatomist, an engineer, sculptor, a mathematician, and astronomer, among many other things, was always something I admired about the man. Not only was he a jack of all trades, he was a master of all trades. Da Vinci is one of the most impressive and respectable men I've ever heard of that remind me of man's potential. Again, even though there wasn't much to do in Milan, I'm still grateful for 2 things. 1, not every hyped up place you hear about will turn out to be as cool as you expected. And 2, a museum that highlights the life of one of our greatest geniuses and reminds us of the things that humans are capable of. I spent 6 days in the city, but 3 days seemed more appropriate. From an unexpected turn of events, I wasn't able to do everything I had planned to do around northern Italy, like going to Lake Como or visiting the temples of humankind up in the Italian Alps. I've heard that Rome, Florence, and Venice are better places to visit, so prioritize those Italian cities over Milan when you come to this country. Milan didn't leave the best impression on Italy for me, but I'm looking forward to give the country another shot somewhere else. Cairo, Egypt. Seeing the Middle East was one of the most surreal experiences in my life. A couple weeks before leading up to this trip, I was getting this mad feeling in my stomach just thinking that I was about to land in the Middle East.
We made it to Egypt.
This was about to be the furthest I've ever traveled from home. Cairo is something else. Seeing the Great Pyramids of Giza from my history textbooks in school was an indescribable feeling. When you see them on the internet, you know that they're huge. But when you see them in person, you're like, holy shit, these are huge. I'll touch more on those in a bit. Egypt taught me some very valuable lessons I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. But I'll keep it down to 3 main ones. 1. Religious societies versus godless societies. I've been to religious countries before like Mexico where 90% are Catholic or Christian, but Egypt was different. When I hit the streets, I realized I'd just stepped onto the land of a very religious country. The vast majority of Egyptians are Muslim, with a small group identifying as Christians. But it was different because I noticed they take religion way more seriously here than they do in Christian countries I've been to. I had never seen this level of dedication to religion before. It was in their clothes, it was in the halal food, their greetings, in the Ubers. Every Uber I took in Cairo had the Quran playing in the car. This is how I discovered that you can sing their holy book and have it be played like music. Their version of hello and goodbye is Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Every interaction started and ended with a positive exchange of words. The way Muslims dress is also based on religion. In Islam, men wear thobes and beards because that's how Jesus dressed, peace be upon him. Women cover their hair because Mary covered her hair.
You see that woman right there? She's covering herself the way that Mary covered herself. Well, Jesus had a beard, correct? Yeah. I also have a beard as well.
The call to prayer you hear from mosques 5 times a day was also something new to me. It was peaceful to hear reminders of God throughout the city every day. This Muslim country left a great impression on me. I really admired how much God is on the forefront of people's minds in this society. It was quite a contrast compared to Western countries like the US or UK, where yes, there are plenty of religious people, but they feel like very godless and atheistic societies. I began to learn about Eastern world culture for the first time in early 2022, and Egypt was the first time seeing Eastern world culture in real life. It was a real eye-opener to see how the whole other half of humans on Earth live their lives. It's made me realize I don't want to raise my future children in a godless society. 2. Humanity's greatest mysteries and ancient civilizations. The Great Pyramids of Giza are arguably the greatest mystery in the history of mankind. How did they build these things? Who built them? Why did they even exist in the first place? What were they used for? There are so many missing parts in the story of the pyramids and so many different explanations for their existence. But here are a few pointers on them. 2.3 million blocks, each stone is about 2.5 tons. Some stones are from a deposit that's hundreds of miles away. If you messed up an inch here and messed up an inch there, during the stacking of these blocks, the pyramid would be all fucked up by the time you reach the top. Perfectly aligned to true north, south, east, and west. Some people believe it was built by slaves. Some people believe it was built by highly skilled engineers that were paid very well. Others say some sort of lost sound technology was used to build them. And others say even ETs from the heavens came down to assist with this construction project. The pyramids used to be flat and smooth with white limestone on the outside and gold at the top. Some think these structures are just tombs, others think the pyramids are lost technology. I'd be lying to say that I know how the pyramids were built. We could go on for hours about theories on how these things were made, but even though we don't have a solid explanation, one thing's for sure. There's a missing piece in the puzzle of the human story. Seeing things like this make me wonder what else we don't know about ourselves. What if there are other crazy stories like the Egyptian pyramids that we've never even heard of, wiped from history? I thought coming to see the Great Pyramids of Giza was going to answer some questions I had, but I just ended up leaving with a million more. I'm sure that there's at least one person on Earth that actually knows how they were built, but I guess that's up to you on who you'll choose to believe. I'd say the most important reason to learn history is to know where we were, so we know where we're headed. But clearly we're missing a lot of the story of where we've been. Like Graham Hancock said, we're a species with amnesia. 3. The rise and fall of great empires and wealth inequality. It was so crazy to think that thousands of years ago the Egyptians had one of the greatest empires in history. Today, 30% of Egyptians live in poverty. The minimum wage is $60 a month. That's $2 a day. I met a local that worked in customer support for a bank, and he was making a good wage of $300 a month. Of course, wages and expenses balance out at the end of the day, but in comparison to American salaries, they earn so little money. I was amazed at the fact that I was buying $1 lunches, 35 Egyptian pounds for a full-size shawarma. They were so busted too. Visiting this country was a reminder of the wealth inequality in the world and how privileged I am to be able to go visit them while coming from a country where making thousands of dollars a month is the norm. If you make more than $30K a year, you're in the top 1% of earners in the world. I get pissed off for not making more money, and don't get me wrong, it's necessary to become extremely goal-oriented with money to financially succeed. But seeing countries like Egypt, Thailand, or Mexico are a good reminder to be grateful for what we already have. The local Egyptian guy I met was Mina. He started documenting his 75 hard challenge on Instagram, and I watched him grow from a couple hundred followers to 13,000 followers in 2023. There are 6 rules to this challenge. For 75 days, you 1. Eat a strict diet with no cheat days. 2. Drink 1 gallon of water. 3. Exercise twice a day. 4. Read 10 pages of a non-fiction book. 5. Take a progress photo. And 6. If you miss a day or even one rule, you restart the 75 days. He posts videos every day in Arabic, so I don't understand anything he's saying. But I get the impression that he's become a motivational speaker to his thousands of followers now and documenting new challenges. Respect, Mina. Proud of you, man. Another unique personality I met in Cairo was Slim, an Arab French guy that's been to 26 countries with his childhood friend, Christophe. I met him on my first morning in Egypt at my rooftop hotel while I was waiting for my tour around the pyramids. Slim did the honors of taking the first Polaroid of the Around the World collection. Egypt changed my life. It was yet again a crucial reminder to get out of our bubble and understand other societies' perspectives on life, to remind us that not everything you care about in your little bubble where you live is everything. The most valuable lessons I took from Egypt are 1. The contrast of life in religious societies versus godless societies. 2. We're a species with amnesia to our own story. And 3. Even the greatest civilizations in history eventually fall. Here's another place that was giving me a mad feeling in my stomach just on the plane ride there. The whole plane from Cairo to Dubai was full of Arabs and thobes and hijabs, and I felt like the only foreigner on that flight. That was an interesting sight I'd never seen before. Dubai is the city of the future, the face of Middle Eastern riches. Places like the tallest building in the world, the Dubai Frame, the Museum of the Future, make you feel like you're in the future, like you're surrounded by greatness. The United Arab Emirates really opened up my eyes to what humans are capable of building. The Quran actually talks about Arabs one day competing and building the tallest structures in the world. Look at the Burj Khalifa today. It taught me that there's a different way to go about organizing society. In a sense, Dubai felt like the new America, and I'm looking forward to making this place my winter home in the near future. Here's why. People come to America to make more money, to make new connections, to live a safer life, and they're moving to a country where everyone is from different countries and everyone speaks English. And the ultimate bottom line is to live a better life. Everything I just said about the US applies to Dubai, except it's better. There's basically zero crime, everyone seems to be doing something cool, booming business opportunities, zero income tax, and there's constantly new things being added to the city all the time. And Dubai's got some real special stuff in store for the next couple decades. I met these 2 guys visiting from India on a business trip, and they told me that there's a 2-year waiting list for them to apply for a US visa, but only 2 days for a UAE visa. Having a view at the tallest building in the world was a good reminder to push beyond your limits and accomplish extraordinary things. It reminds me that I'm surrounded by greatness. The nice modern apartment on the 20th floor lifestyle isn't really for me, but if I had to pick one place on earth to live like that, it would have to be downtown Dubai with a view of the Burj Khalifa. Also, the futuristic Burj Khalifa light show might be the greatest night show I've seen in my life. If you time traveled and brought back a caveman to see the show, they'd probably think a portal to heaven is opening up. Especially if you were to show them the New Year's countdown light show, that would be crazy. Seeing things like this are a reminder that we're living in the future right now. Dubai really knew what they were doing when it comes to building an iconic city. I've heard urban designers say, if you want to build an iconic city, you need iconic buildings. Just like how Paris has the Eiffel Tower, San Francisco has the Golden Gate Bridge, Barcelona with the Sagrada Familia. Dubai definitely knew what impression they wanted to make on the world, with the tallest building in the world, a giant golden frame, a giant glowing donut from the future, the largest artificial island on Earth where many of the city's millionaires live, and the only 7-star hotel in the world. Materialism isn't everything, and I know this very well. But again, all these projects remind you that you're surrounded by people accomplishing extraordinary things. There's an energy in the air of exceptionalism. I'm now realizing as I'm getting my thoughts out, that's the main reason I wanted to spend time in Dubai. In the weeks when fighters are approaching their fight night, they leave home and are only surrounded by other fighters and their training team. I've realized that I want that in my life as well. If you want to be exceptionally successful, go to the land of the exceptionally successful. I made some pretty cool friends in Dubai, but finding these 2 was something I was not expecting. This is Adam. This is Freddie. Both of these guys were on the same mission that I was on. Circle the planet. Except, these guys were doing it on motorcycles.
10,000 miles down.
Adam is a guy that likes to do extreme stuff. Which explains why he was riding a motorcycle around the world when I met him in Dubai. He's a cool guy. Freddie's a British guy that just happened to run into Adam when they were in Turkey, or Jordan, I forget which one. It was so cool to meet other travelers during the trip, but meeting two other guys on the same exact mission that I was on in Dubai, that was something special. Until next time, boys. Also, here's another friend I met in Dubai, Leo. Abu Dhabi. This was a little side quest from Dubai, and it's definitely worth a mention. About an hour and a half southwest of Dubai is the capital of the UAE. They have the 4th largest mosque in the world and perhaps the most beautiful building I've seen in my life. This is the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. As an American, it was very refreshing to see a different style of buildings that you don't see back at home. It almost felt like being on a different planet. I would say more about this place, but I'll fall back on that one special quote. A picture is worth 1,000 words. The UAE is a good intro to the Middle East for Westerners that are afraid of this part of the world. Dubai is the most westernized Middle Eastern city because it's a global hub with 90% foreigners, so it's accommodating to Westerners. You can still go and drink and party at clubs like you do at home, and yes, the UAE is a Muslim country, but you won't get sent to jail for drinking a beer at a restaurant. So you don't have to worry about super strict Islamic laws. Dubai is exceptionally safe because the government has taken very good measures in securing the city. And don't worry about terrorism or war from neighboring countries. Being in Dubai and worrying about Afghanistan is like being in Beverly Hills worrying about Compton. Dubai was hands down my favorite place I visited during this trip around the world. I'll be back in the UAE very soon. Singapore. These intros are getting repetitive, but yet again, Singapore was another country I was going mad in just in the airport after landing. I'd been looking forward to this place for a few years mainly for one reason, Gardens by the Bay. I didn't even see that much of Singapore because I was hanging out here every single day. Just like Abu Dhabi's Grand Mosque, this place felt like being on a different planet. It was a perfect balance of nature and futurism. I'll say there are two major lessons I took from Singapore. 1. Singapore's come up. Even though Singapore appears as a super city of the future in 2023, the city had a pretty rough start back in 1965. After Singapore was kicked out of Malaysia and forcefully made an independent country, 2/3 of Singaporeans lived in slums. Its multi-race population was breaking out into violence, it had no significant industry, and unemployment was high. Singapore was looking like it was destined to be an underdeveloped country with violence and poverty. But in 2023, it's the 4th richest country in the world. It has some of the healthiest and most educated citizens of any country, world-class infrastructure, and is now a leader in high-tech manufacturing, and is the financial hub of Southeast Asia. After researching Singapore's financial growth strategy, it was very clear that this was not luck, and the Singaporeans executed some extremely strategic chess moves. Singapore's success can be broken down into 5 key moves. 1. Perfect trading location. Singapore is located at the crossroads of international trade routes, which made the country a prominent hub for global trade. 2. Incentives for businesses. The government implemented policies for a favorable business environment, tax incentives, invested in infrastructure, and streamlined bureaucracy. 3. Incentives for foreign high-skilled workers. The government has made it easy for highly skilled workers to obtain permanent residency, which attracts worldwide talent for innovation and growth. 4. Incentives for entrepreneurs. The government also has policies that encourage entrepreneurship and innovation. For example, the government provides funding and support for startups and has established research and development centers in key industries like biotechnology and clean energy. 5. Incentives for foreign banks. Singapore's government has also set up policies that attract foreign banks and financial institutions to set up in their country. Very smart, Singapore. Well played. Two, iconic futuristic buildings. The main reason I booked a flight to Singapore is to see the Gardens by the Bay. I wanted to see the future. I wanted to see nature. And this was the perfect blend. Being here felt like being in an Avatar movie. I was here for 5 days and hung out here every single day. As an urban design student, this city has reminded me of a very important lesson I'd already learned time and time again. Build iconic buildings. These projects are the face of your country and your advertisement for a trip to your city. Also, can't forget about the voted best airport in the world 8 years in a row, Singapore's Changi Airport. It has an indoor waterfall, butterfly garden, the most satisfying bathroom I've ever used, a swimming pool, a movie theater, a Pokemon Center, an arcade, every possible cuisine, etc, etc. Another smart play by leaving a great first impression on their visitors. Thank you to Singapore for their marvelous creation of a city. I'll definitely be returning as soon as possible. Bangkok, Thailand is the most visited city in the world, so naturally I was curious to see why. Thailand can be simplified into 3 key areas. The north's countryside, the center's capital city, and the south's tropical beaches. This time I only got to see Bangkok and the southern party island Koh Phi Phi. Here are 3 lessons Thailand taught me. 1. Thailand's formula to become one of the most visited countries in the world. Beautiful temples plus cheap stuff plus beautiful nature equals tourist heaven. Temples like Wat Po and the Grand Palace feel like being in an alternate version of reality. Life is so similar to home, but with different faces, foods, religions, and building styles. Wat Po has the giant leaning Buddha and houses the largest collection of Buddha images in Thailand. I'll say the Grand Palace was the superior Thai temple. If you only go to one temple in Bangkok, go to this one. You also gotta love Thailand for their prices. At home I'll pay $7 for a Jamba Juice smoothie. In Thailand I pay $1 for a mango smoothie. In the Bay Area they sell you pad thais for $15. In Bangkok I was eating pad thais for $2. A half-day boat party ride around Koh Phi Phi to see monkeys, $28. Private room in Koh Phi Phi hostel, $16. Makes sense why Westerners love coming here. You can't talk about Thailand without mentioning their nature. When deciding to go north or south after Bangkok, I knew I couldn't leave Thailand without seeing their tropical beaches. I didn't do the best research on where in the south of Thailand I should go to, so I trusted my Bangkok hostel worker's recommendation. Koh Phi Phi. The footage speaks for itself. 2. People sell everything in developing countries. Yes, people sell everything everywhere in the world. But this became uniquely clear to me the first morning out of the hostel in Bangkok. The road was full of people with stands selling smoothies, clothes, massages, street food, tuk-tuk rides, beer, laughing gas balloons, tree, fake Supreme, shoe shining, bus rides to the rest of the country, bugs, even alligator meat. And I can't forget the 10 clubs blasting 10 songs at once with their girls with signs trying to pull you in with their beer bundle deals. I do have to mention though, I mainly saw this on the streets surrounding Khao San Road, the most touristy street in Thailand. When I landed in Bangkok at midnight, I just randomly booked the first hostel in central Bangkok I found on Hostel World. And looking back now, it makes sense that it took me over to one street from Khao San Road. I never even heard of the street until the hostel mates told me in the morning about where I was at. This example of Thai people getting out in the streets to make a living left an imprint in my memory. It was a reminder that there are so many people around the world with way tougher grinds that pay them a fraction of what us Westerners make. 3. This ties into the second lesson. I'm extremely privileged to be a rich man in countries like Thailand, Egypt, Mexico. This life feels like a gift. There are so many factors out of my control that birthed me into the position of a healthy first world American male. It's only human to look at what's wrong in life and want better for yourself. But seeing other people's lives is a great reminder to be grateful for what you already have. Thailand goes down in my top 3 favorite countries from the around the world trip because of the amount of stories I can tell from Bangkok and Koh Phi Phi. On day 1, I discovered $1 smoothies and pad thais. On day 2, I'm visiting temples from a parallel universe. On day 3, I meet a British guy named Fraser that just landed from London at a shipping container hostel that won 3rd place in the world for long jump at 16. He was definitely in the top 3 chillest people I met during my trip around the world. When I invited him to go to the south when I was leaving Bangkok, he said, "Sure, mate." And so we left on a 12-hour bus ride to the south of Thailand. I found a travel buddy and a stranger for my travels through Thailand. We went to temples, stayed at hostels together, partied together, hiked, explored the city and tropics. Shout out to Fraser, man. He was cool as fuck. I better see you here in the Bay Area, and I'll be sure to visit you when I'm in the UK again. Fraser was one of the many British people I met in Thailand. Apparently this country is very popular for European backpackers, and half of them are from the UK. I stayed in 5 hostels in Thailand. All of them had at least one Brit, and half the rooms I stayed at were all English lads. As an English speaker, it was interesting to hear the British and Australian English with their accents and slang. It adds spice to life. Out of the 9 countries, Thailand was the place I collected the most Instagrams and made the most friends. Speaking of friends I made on this trip, this might have been the most mind-blowing moment of the entire trip. Remember Freddie from Dubai? When I met Freddie in Dubai, he told me that he was headed to Thailand after the UAE, and I told him I was headed there too after a few days in Singapore. I told him that was cool, and I didn't think much of it. What are the chances, with no communication, that I randomly ran into Freddy again in Bangkok? One street over from Khao San Road. I don't know why God had our paths cross again like that, but that's a mind f*** I'll remember forever. Thailand was also the country with the most pictures of their royal family. It was an interesting reminder that, after all, Thailand is still a kingdom. The biggest L I took here was losing my debit card in a cash-only country. I survived by PayPaling Fraser every time he went to the ATM. When it was time to leave Bangkok, I was talking to a hostel worker about where I should visit next in the country. I told him I wanted to see the tropical beaches of Thailand. He told me about a place called Koh Phi Phi, the island where they shot the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, The Beach. He told me it had a blend of everything: nature, clubs, beaches, monkeys. But honestly, he kinda misled me with that one because it was a party every single day on Koh Phi Phi. Damn near every hostel was a party hostel blasting house remixes of the top 10 hottest songs all day and all night. It was super fun but super draining after just 3 days, which made me want to leave the country completely. It was definitely not my cup of tea. Looking back, I should have just left to a different part of the country because I'm now wanting to go back and explore the north and more the south again. There were Europeans there working for hostels telling me that they've done the party boat ride the hostel offers every single day for the last 3 months. If you got the soul of an eternal partier, then Koh Phi Phi is for you. The best part of Koh Phi Phi was coming face to face with monkeys in the wild for the first time. There was such a familiar gaze in their eyes. They were so different, yet so similar. It was an otherworldly experience to stare into the soul of our evolutionary cousins. I'd imagine that's what it felt like to stare into the eyes of an extraterrestrial. The climax of the Thailand experience was fighting an Irish guy at a bar. There's this place on Koh Phi Phi called the Reggae Bar. The main entertainment is a boxing ring in the middle of the bar where strangers volunteer to get in the ring and fighters get a free drink. After watching a few fights with my new Koh Phi Phi friends, I noticed that this guy had just put on the boxing shorts standing behind me, so I said what's up to him. He told me his name was Finn. He's from Ireland, and he was about to step in the ring for his first fight ever. But he had no opponent yet. After talking for a couple minutes, I told him I'd never been in a fight either. He pointed out that we were about the same size, and told me to get in the ring with him. I hesitated at first, but then I thought, we're here to push our comfort zones and seek new experiences. So I said, F it. I had no idea what I was doing in there, but luckily I didn't get knocked to the ground. I got some good blows on him, but he got more on me, so Finn won. Respect, mate. My time in Thailand ended on my 5th day in Koh Phi Phi. By the 4th day I was completely drained and I didn't even want to be there anymore. There were too many degenerates and too much partying. I'm glad I visited, but I don't feel like going back there anytime soon. Fraser and I had met these 3 other British friends we made on Koh Phi Phi, and he left with them to a new island on the 4th day. I'm not gonna lie, I felt a degree of sadness and emptiness when Fraser left. My travel buddy I arrived to the island with was now gone. I circled the entire planet alone, but never felt lonely. For some reason the loneliness had really hit on the last couple of days on this random island off the coast of Thailand. All the island buddies I'd made during my time there had already left by the end of the island trip, and the extreme partying had started to irritate me by this point. On the 5th day, I booked a boat ride to Phuket, headed to the airport, and got a flight to my final destination of the around the world journey. Thailand gets the 3rd place award from this trip because of the memories and choices I made in this country. Thailand can be a chaotic party tourist destination and also a spiritual enlightening experience. You can walk past a prostitute and a Buddhist monk on the same street. There are many versions of the Thailand experience you can choose from. You can go day drinking on the party islands with college backpackers, or you can go live with Buddhist monks and train with the best Muay Thai fighters on earth. I should have stayed longer in Thailand to go north and see the countryside and sought out more spiritual experiences, but you live and you learn. This place taught me about choices. At the end of the day, it's the same story no matter where you are in the world. I'll be returning to this country soon to continue the Thailand story. Thank you, Thailand. Seoul, South Korea. From the tropics to the Arctics. My 5-hour flight from the tropics landed me in the coldest weather I'd ever experienced. The day I arrived in Seoul, it was 15 degrees. I hibernated for the next 2 days and only went outside to buy water from 7-Eleven. The Korean experience began on day 3, when it became slightly less cold and I could walk over to my next hostel stay in Hongdae. There were some intriguing things I noticed about Korea during my time in Seoul. How is it so safe here? Why is there a lot of cute, artistic aesthetics in Asia? In the freezing cold of winter, why are girls wearing super short skirts? How is it this fucking cold? Seoul was an exciting and intriguing introduction to East Asia. The hostel I was staying at in Hongdae had some cool people in there. This man was an interesting find. One of them was Hans. He works in Antarctica year-round doing some sort of mechanical maintenance, and I caught him in Seoul during his vacation time. Now I can say, I know someone in Antarctica. To say the least, this country was quite a unique gem of the world. There are 3 things about South Korea that stood out to me. 1. Hallyu, or Korean Wave, the globalization of Korean culture. In the last decade, you've heard of things like Squid Game, BTS, K-dramas, and mukbang. Korean media has been gaining popularity around the world, but this is far from an accident. This is how the South Korean government is exporting and globalizing Korean entertainment and culture to grow their economy. 1993, Jurassic Park comes out and becomes the biggest film in the world. President Kim Young-sam's advisors take notice and suggest South Korea make bigger investments in media production. They said that Jurassic Park made as much money as the sale of 1.5 million Hyundai cars, one of South Korea's biggest exports. So this made them refocus their energy and money into the entertainment industry. 1996, the Korean Ministry of Culture creates a law to encourage massive Korean companies like Samsung to invest in the local film industry. 1997, the Asian financial crisis hits South Korea, and President Kim Dae-jung counters the crisis by doubling down on the globalization of Korean culture. A couple decades later, K-pop, K-dramas, and Korean film are as popular as ever around the world. 2019, Korean entertainment has made over $10 billion for its economy. 2023, Netflix invests $2.5 billion into Korean content. However, this isn't just about money. Products like K-pop establish a degree of global influence just through appeal and attraction. BTS alone has the ability to influence millions of fans around the world. Pre-pandemic, 1 in 13 tourists visited South Korea because of BTS. K-pop's international success was by design of the Korean government to boost their economy and influence. Take a closer look at how Korean companies engineered the global success of K-pop. Most artists start from their parents' garage being driven by a passion for the art and later on get discovered by a record label. K-pop groups are usually born and rise to stardom from a conference room. Korean labels are closer to product designers than agencies. They curate every aspect of their groups. It all starts from recruitment. K-pop stars are public idols to society as much as they are musicians. So these companies look for distinct but cohesive personalities to appeal to the largest fan base possible. Some labels turn recruitment into a reality TV competition. In 2012, over 2 million Koreans tried out for South Korea's most popular reality TV competition, Superstar K. Group names like BTS, Blackpink, NewJeans, EXO appeal to global audiences because of their short and easily recognizable English words or acronyms for names. Another detail these companies will implement is having at least one Japanese, Chinese, or Thai group member to again appeal to the audiences outside of Korea. Songs are often made in 3 languages, Korean, Mandarin, and Japanese, with English words thrown into the songs. South Korea makes $5 for every dollar invested in K-pop. When I was at my hostel in Seoul, there were K-pop music videos being played in the living room, and there was something that caught my eye. Every single video was a choreographed dance video of 5 to 8 guys or girls. It felt very performative, perhaps a bit too performative. But after researching Hallyu, my observations started to make a lot of sense. K-pop is a strategically engineered international product of the Korean Ministry of Culture to boost South Korea's economy, and they've been quite successful. Hallyu was a masterful marketing and business lesson. Well played, South Korea. 2. Groupthink. I noticed that most guys and girls had very similar haircuts, and since I visited during the wintertime, half the people on the street were wearing long black coats. These small details made me ask bigger questions about groupism in East Asia. In what other ways does it manifest in their societies? Where did Korea get their sense of groupism from? Here are a few answers ChatGPT gave me. The ideology of Confucianism came from Master Kong, most commonly known as Confucius, a Chinese philosopher that lived about 2,500 years ago. Some aspects of Confucianism include emphasis on maintaining social harmony and avoiding conflict. This emphasis can discourage different opinions that disrupt the perceived unity. Collectivism, prioritizing collective goals over individual interests. In group settings, this can lead to conformity to group norms. A couple hundred years ago after his death, Confucian philosophy became influential during the Han Dynasty and continued to shape Chinese history, culture, and philosophy for centuries to come. Over the millennia, Confucian ideology spread to other parts of East Asia, like Japan, Vietnam, and Korea, which can partially explain aspects of the roots of collectivism in Korea. Other factors that have contributed to groupthink in Korea have been centuries of authoritarian rule, education systems that emphasize conformity, which can discourage independent expression of ideas, media control that limits diverse perspectives, which can lead to a narrowed range of viewpoints, social norms that prioritize the group over the individual, fear of losing face, a duty to maintain one's reputation, which can discourage individuals from expressing different opinions in group settings. It was interesting to observe how groupthink and collectivism manifests itself in East Asia during my time in Korea. It reminded me of a crucial point. This isn't just a Korean, Chinese, or Japanese phenomenon. This happens everywhere. In America, Egypt, Nigeria, Poland, or anywhere else on Earth. Every single person is susceptible to groupthink in their own way. Collectivism is part of being human. We're social creatures that evolved within tribes for thousands of years. The tribe mentality will mark all of us to our own degree. This isn't to say this mentality is good or bad. It's a double-edged sword. There are many aspects of groupthink that are beneficial to us, like the ability to work together to become the most advanced species on Earth. However, this doesn't come without its cons as well. The best lesson you can take from this is to be observant and aware as possible to use the pros of collectivism to your advantage, and be aware enough to see the cons of it taking you over. 3. Privilege. Life in North Korea and South Korea. A big reason that brought me to this country was its neighbor just 30 miles north of Seoul, North Korea. Visiting the DMZ was one of the most surreal moments of my life. On Christmas morning, I woke up before the sun came up to catch a bus to the border of North and South Korea, the demilitarized zone. At the DMZ, it was inexplicably insane to think about the hell of an alternate universe just across the border in front of me. Here's some insight to just scratch the surface. 1945. After Japan surrendered to the US in World War II, they had to give up the territories they took over during the war. One of them was Korea. The Soviet Union and the United States agreed to temporarily divide the Korean peninsula and work towards unifying the country. The Soviets take the north, and the Americans take the south. But tensions rise during the Cold War between the two superpowers, and reunification stalls. 1948. Syngman Rhee becomes the first president of capitalist South Korea, and Kim Il-sung becomes the first supreme leader of communist North Korea. This is the beginning of two completely different worlds for the people of Korea. It's important to note that North Korea has no internet access or accurate knowledge of the outside world in 2023, and little is known about North Korea due to secrecy. North Koreans are not allowed to leave the country. However, there are a handful of people that have escaped and lived to tell their story of life in the communist dictatorship. One of them is Yeonmi Park. I learned about his story when she came onto the Joe Rogan podcast to share her memories of growing up in North Korea. In 2007, Yeonmi was 13 years old. She and her mother crossed the frozen Yalu River that divides North Korea and China. They bribed their way out of the country with a guide to help them avoid the heavily guarded border. If they're caught, they're dead. Her childhood is one of the most disturbing stories I've heard in my life, but I share it to paint a picture of the harsh realities of the world, and to remind myself of the extreme privilege we have.
It's hard to believe for people that don't know what life is like in North Korea. You essentially had no food, and you would go looking for bugs to eat.
Yeah.
This was the reality of your existence as a child.
On purpose, they're being starved. Only thing you can think of, you're a survivor. I mean, if you are full in your stomach, right, you're gonna start thinking about meaning of life, art, what's out there in the universe. You can do all of that higher thinking when you are full in your stomach. But when you're hungry, the only thing that matters is your hunger. If we have money, we go to black market, buy, corn, starch, those things. But mostly we just go to mountain to pick up plants, flowers, and like grasshoppers is the biggest protein source for North Koreans. People go to black market, you sell meat. People don't ask what meat it is. It's like pork or like it's just a rabbit. We don't. Sometimes we go find a very, very cheap meat and we don't ask.
So it's just an entire country in a perpetual state of starvation.
Yeah. If you have the promise of eating a one meal, they're gonna risk everything for that. As a younger, I never ate till I felt full. I don't know the limits of my stomach because I never tested it.
So you always were hungry.
Always hungry, never felt full.
There's no effort whatsoever to get food to the people.
It's not like effort, they're actually actively preventing people to get resources. The Biden was calling Kim Jong-un, can we give you a vaccine? And Kim Jong-un said no. South Korea was calling North Korea last year, there's a big flood, can we give you at least some medicine? And Kim Jong-un said no, we don't want any medicine.
They want to keep people as weak as possible.
Exactly. Getting up in North Korea as a child was challenging because every day you get dizzy from the starvation. You get like hear noise every single morning when you wake up. It takes like 30 minutes to gather your thoughts to able to walk straight because everybody's in that mode of starvation. The regime policy was if we as long as keep the 10% alive who are in the capital, our rule is successful. So they were not going to do anything until 90% of population dies. As long as we keep the 10% alive, we are not going to do anything, intervene the starvation. You don't poop like in North Korea like a few times a month. It's a very precious thing. Yeah, of course.
And you have to give it over to the regime.
Yeah. Nothing is being wasted.
So do they have toilets or do you go to the bathroom in outhouses?
Oh, we have all outhouses. They're digging a hole. But we have to lock it because some people come and steal it.
They come to steal the poop?
Yeah, it's a government quota. You get punished if you don't bring poop.
How much poop do you have to give them?
So sometimes per family they say 1 ton. How do you find that?
A ton?
Yeah.
That's per year?
Yeah. And then we have to bring them in usually January. So because the farming starts around March, January they collect them and pile them up and then they started burying it and then they start the farming process in the spring.
And even then you don't get any of the food that they're growing.
It's a collective farm. So they take the 98% of the food to the regime and then that 2% is spread among the elites who's running the farm. So you work an entire year in the collective farm, you get nothing from it.
This is a very disturbing story, but I want you to try to explain it to people. Going to the doctor when you were a child, people were dying in these hospitals. Rats would eat the eyeballs of the people who were dying, and children who were starving would eat the rats. And then the children would die and the rats would eat the children.
Yeah. Well, I mean, seeing dead bodies on the streets is like an everyday thing.
Normal thing to see dead bodies.
It was every day as like normal as like breathing the air right now. My sister and I was walking by the well, and there's a young teenage boy, I think, lying down, and his intestines coming out of his back. When you're really malnourished, that thing all opens up. He was just somehow conscious, begging for food at the time.
He was begging for food while his organs were hanging out of his body.
Yeah, I don't know why he was like pants were off. That still haunts me till this day. Like, I don't know how I felt nothing at that point. That just looked horrible. Because it's just the fact that he's alive and so much flies flying by on his organs and how he's somehow consciously begging for food. The children, we just don't even know what killed it and nobody bothered to go out and like find it for you. So many people die. So that's why it's easy to sell the human meat.
They're killing the children or they'll find them dead and then just cook their meat and sell it. And this is common.
Yeah. The entire country became a concentration camp.
What can the rest of the world do to stop this from happening? Because it seems like it's a form of genocide and it's happening right now.
It's a Holocaust. In 2014, UN conducted this investigation for a year, and the conclusion was the only resemblance that we find in our history what is happening to Northern people is a Holocaust.
Times that you could be sentenced to death for.
As little as, so in North Korea, every room has to have a portrait of kings. And the inspector comes out of nowhere in the middle of the night and then touch the portraits. If they see any dust, they say your royalty is not high enough. And then you can get executed and sent to prison camp 3 generations of your family. And if your house gets on fire, the first thing is not you run with your family or your children or parents. You have to protect the portraits with your life. Otherwise, the 3 generation gets punished for that.
It's mandatory to attend public executions.
Yeah.
And how do they kill the people?
After Kim Jong-un got in power, he became more brutal how he kills people. He used the missiles that shoot down the airplane. They blow it into pieces. If the one person commits a crime in that family clan, 3 to 8 generations gotta be purged. North Korea makes money by selling crystal meth and opium and hacking, right? He steals a lot of Bitcoin. That's how Kim Jong-un makes money. They don't export anything other than drugs and weapons and hacking and human trafficking. When I call North Korea, even till this day, I do have people underground. I get information. Their voice is so oppressed. You can tell this is North Korean speaking.
What does it sound like?
It's like complete fear. Terrified to the point they don't even know they're terrified.
How much education did you get?
I never even seen the map of the world. I did not even know that I was Asian. The regime told me I was a Kim Il-sung race. North Korean calendar begins when Kim Il-sung was born. Our history begins. I don't even know what Jesus Christ is. I don't know anything before Kim. Everything before Kim, the history was erased for us. The thing is that we are hungry, we're starving. So in that scenario, who thinks about history? Nobody thinks about anything other than surviving. And that is why precisely Kim Jong-un keeping us starving mode. Even though the UN, the international organizations, begging to give food and formula to North Korean people, but Kim Jong-un is just saying no to this food aid because he doesn't want us to be fed.
So he's purposely starving the people to keep them weak so that all they think about is surviving, so they don't think about revolution.
It's like when I was reading this book, Hunger Games, I literally like, oh my God, this person copied North Korea. North Korea is the #1 Christian persecution country because they copied the Bible. They said, oh, Kim Il-sung loves us so much, he's a god. He gave us his son Kim Jong-il. And he dies, but he speaks with us all the time. That's why they can read my thoughts. I heard that in South Korea, the South Korea was very corrupt capitalist and raped by American soldiers every day. And they are like, kids cannot go to school, and they all want to come to North Korea. The entire humanity wants to be like North Korea, so we are so fortunate. They tell us that we have nothing to envy in this world. So in North Korea, there's no word for stress. How can you be stressed in the socialist paradise? There's no word trauma. There's no word depression because you cannot be simply depressed in socialist paradise. There's no word for liberty. There's no word for human rights. There's no word for love in North Korea.
Your mother never told you she loved you. You never told your father you love him.
Yeah. In North Korea, there's even no word for I. They don't want people to be individualistic, right? That's the worst thing you can be. It's all collectivism. When North Koreans say, we love water. In South Korea, there's a difference between we and I. And South Koreans get so frustrated that we are keep misusing I and we. That's how regime controls your minds through language. So that's how I got rid of the romantic love. We don't even know possibly another human can love another human. Only love that North Koreans know is like when we describe our feeling towards a leader. We don't know that word can be used to describing our feelings to another human. You're being spied on and you're spying on somebody. So no escape.
If you said something negative about the government, I would have to tell on you, otherwise I would get in trouble.
Yeah, that's how they create distrust. People say, why there's no revolution in North Korea? I'm like, how do you fight to be when you don't know you're a slave?
Right.
It's impossible. I met American friends in New York. I went to school there. And like my friends' complaints, I couldn't sympathize in the beginning because their problem is like some guy they went on a date and they don't call them back. And they call me and complain like, there's a people actual problems like life and death.
Yeah. Well, it's an issue of perspective, right? You've seen horrific things. So many people, the worst thing that's ever happened to them is someone broke up with them.
Yeah.
They're starving these people to death in order to keep control of them.
Yeah.
And the results were horrific. If you don't hear that in all of its terrifying, brutal detail, then you're not going to be aware. And even then, you're not going to really be aware. You are absolutely aware. You were born into this terrifying dictatorship that exists right now while you and I are sitting here in Austin, Texas, talking, drinking coffee, having a good old time. Mm-hmm. There's people in concentration camps for no fault of their own in a country where you were born. The way you're discussing it, it's resonating. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know what the fuck you experienced. I'd have to go there. Mm-hmm. I would have to live your life.
The biggest problem you have is somebody calls you wrong pronoun. And this triggers them. This makes them depressed. And this is the thing, all they think is the biggest injustice they've ever seen.
You watching this video means that you have a supercomputer in your hands with access to master any subject on Earth. It means you have the money to pay a phone bill, a roof over your head, warm water, and any food you want to have for dinner. I often have to remind myself of how good most of us have it in life. Stories like Yeonmi's remind me of how much bullshit we complain about. It reminds me of how stupid most people's excuses are as to why they aren't happy, or why they can't do something in life. The final, and perhaps the most important lesson I'll share from my trip around the world, is about privilege and gratitude. In our everyday lives, there are opportunities to remind ourselves of how good we really have it. A lot of things you prayed for when you were younger are now a part of your life today. As you can tell, I personally had an infinite amount of life to be grateful for in 2022. I still catch myself upset about insignificant things here and there, but the thing that grounds me nowadays is not even privileges like seeing the world. It's things like my mom being alive, seeing my brothers grow up, and being youthful with a bed, clothes, and food on my plate that remind me of how fortunate I am. You'll find yourself in a different version of reality when you're thinking about the things you have rather than what you don't have. You notice that life is whatever you want it to be, depending on which side of the coin you choose to look at. This is a double-edged sword though. I recognize that gratitude and always wanting more are tools that you can use intelligently or stupidly. You can use a hammer intelligently to build a castle, or you can be an idiot and throw it and shatter a window. You decide how to use it. Christmas Day 2022. I saw North Korea. The final and closest point we reached towards the border was the Dora Observatory on top of a hill, less than half a mile away from North Korea. From here, we got to see a North Korean town in real life. It's a propaganda village, or a mock town, built to fake a prosperous town with modern buildings to display to South Koreans and the world that they're a successful country. It was inexplicably insane to look through the binoculars and see North Korean men riding their bikes on the icy roads. I saw North Korea. I spent most of my time in Hongdae during my week stay in Seoul. It's a neighborhood with interesting restaurants, stores, bars, and a crowd with younger adults. Seoul seems to be a place where you'll never run out of new things to discover. I'll surely be back here again sooner than later. South Korea is a bizarre place. You have to see it for yourself.
One, two, three.
The Portal Between Worlds. The Hawaii Story. Day 72, December 30th, 2022. Seoul, South Korea was the 9th and final country of the Around the World trip. 9:30 p.m. My flight from South Korea to the United States takes off from Incheon Airport. 7 hours to a stop in Honolulu. We touch down in Hawaii, I get off the plane, and wait in the immigration lines. What happened next was an unexpected turn of events. The immigration officer asked where I'd been during my time abroad. I told him about some countries I'd visited like the UAE, South Korea, Singapore, Egypt. He calls another officer to take me to a private room where he proceeds to interrogate me for the next 2 hours. Why'd you visit Singapore? Who'd you meet there? Tell me about every activity you did during your time there. What's your religion? Are you married or have children? Where and with who do you live with? What high school did you go to in the Bay Area? Why did you visit so many countries in a row? I was asked every question in existence as the officer was writing down every detail I talked about. To simplify, I told him that the purpose behind all these visits is just tourism. I like crazy adventures. After giving every last detail about my trip, they searched my suitcase and my backpack. When everything was cleared and I was given permission to pass through immigration, the man said, "Do you have any questions?" I asked him, why was I interrogated and searched this time when this had never happened previous times when I've returned from abroad? He tells me, "You're a military-aged male that visited 5 red flag countries back to back. You're an uncommon situation we rarely see. We had to investigate you." That was the dramatic ending to the journey. 1:10 p.m. After 3 hours in Honolulu, I hop on the final flight of the trip. 8:15 p.m. After another 5 hours of flying over the Pacific, we land in San Jose and complete a circle around the planet. My mom had been calling me in Korea asking when I'd be back home to the Bay Area. After I met Adam in Dubai, he left me with an interesting idea. When he left Dubai, he flew back home to San Diego and gave his girlfriend a surprise return home after months on the road. I decided to do the same thing to my family. I had a friend pick me up from the airport and take me home. I arrived to an empty house and they arrived a couple hours later to find me chilling in the living room. Hugging my family again was the final step in completing the trip around the world.
One, two, three.
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
The starting and end point of this journey was the San Francisco Bay Area, the tech capital of the world, arguably the most influential community on Earth, the birthplace of the personal computer, the smartphone, and the internet, as well as my birthplace. The land of tech bros, stoner hippies, rainbow people, the warriors, and most importantly, Mac Dre.
I'm in a building and I'm feeling myself. Man, I'm feeling myself.
I've had a unique experience going to school with the kids of Google, Apple, Oracle, Amazon, and PayPal workers in Silicon Valley. There were so many overpressured kids of tech workers that I saw growing up in the Bay Area. I remember opening up Snapchat one day in high school to see a kid I had a class with casually hanging out with his family, and Mark Zuckerberg. My friends' parents showing us unreleased products they were working on for these tech giants. When I was in middle school, I hadn't realized how much of an impact my community was having on the world. In the least visited country on Earth, Tuvalu, you can find people using YouTube and Google, apps made by our Silicon Valley neighbors, on an iPhone designed by a guy that went to my high school. Growing up in the Bay Area for 2 decades has given me a lot of time to learn about this place, and has taught me lessons that have shaped who I am today. Before I share some crucial lessons about my own town, I'll show you a bit of where I grew up. My favorite thing about the Bay Area is the diversity of landscapes. Within an hour, you can be in the skyscraper-filled San Francisco with rolling hills and every type of human imaginable, or you can go to the quiet suburbs of Mountain View and Cupertino. You can go to the beach with the stoner surfing hippies of Santa Cruz, or you can go hike with your friends in the Santa Cruz Mountains redwood forests. And in the winter, you can head east a couple hours and have a snow day. It's quite the contrast compared to the majority of America just being flat plains. To the dozens of people I met around the world, the hangout spots in the Bay Area our friends constantly return to are the undisputed best park on earth, San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, SF's Land's End, SF's Twin Peaks viewpoint, Marshall Beach's view of the Golden Gate Bridge, Kirby Cove view of the bridge, Lime Point Lighthouse view of the bridge, SF MoMA, Stevens Creek Reservoir, Mount Eden, Pichetti Winery's viewpoints and trails, Castle Rock State Park, Saratoga Springs, Garden of Eden, and a personal favorite, Sharkfin Cove. Go big or go home. Growing up in Silicon Valley surrounded by the empires of the biggest companies on earth has taught me about pursuing big dreams, doing the impossible. To a degree, this is embedded into American culture, known around the world as the land of opportunity. The US has the biggest economy in the world, which equals the biggest opportunities for wealth. It makes sense as to why so many people from everywhere want to come here. In a way, America is the greatest success story in history. Again, in that aspect, I'm extremely privileged to have just spawned into consciousness in this part of the world. By this point in life, it feels as if I was born here to be reminded of the greatness that humans can achieve. America, a double-edged sword. America is not all glitz and glamour though. There are many concerns about the Bay, California, and the US that I have. Why do certain foods in America have 5 times more bullshit ingredients than their UK version of the same product?
In Europe, only 5% of the food is genetically modified. Here, it's 70%.
I understand that these processed foods are literally engineered to make you addicted, so you buy more. I understand the genius system created to feed hundreds of millions of Americans has been amazingly useful, but at what cost? 2 in 3 American adults are overweight. 1 in 3 are obese. The National Cancer Institute tells us that 1 in 2 American men will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. Women, 1 in 3. And we wonder where cancer comes from. Here's a genius idea. Maybe it's the thousands of artificial lab-made ingredients Americans are eating.
You can drink a whole quart of it and it won't hurt you.
You want to drink some? We have some.
I'm not stupid. I'm not an idiot.
If you live in California, you've seen this sign before in restaurants or grocery stores. You are literally being told to your face, the food causes cancer. One could make the argument, everything nowadays causes cancer. Sure, but at least I'd rather live in a country where the majority of the food isn't fucking poisoned. I find it strange how normalized we are to San Francisco and San Jose, with the richest people in California paying $6,000 a month for their penthouse, few floors above the homeless crackheads yelling in the streets.
When I ask them, hey, what are you doing shooting up right here? And they look at me like I'm crazy. That's how emboldened these policies have made the addicts. They've actually feel like they have the right to just be out there living like that and exposing children to this and all the other citizens of San Francisco to this.
I grew up seeing this for decades in the Bay, but after comparing it to other places in the world, it now seems rather dystopian. In a godless society, the devil appears. The majority of Americans don't take religion very seriously, even a lot of religious Americans. However, every human subscribes to a religion, whether it's Christianity, liberalism, Islam, communism, or your own desires. My understanding of God is that it's a 500 terabyte concept that your 16 gigabyte memory card can't comprehend. From 17 to 22, I spent time studying Buddhism, Christianity, New Age spirituality, Hinduism, and Islam. One conclusion I came to from studying multiple spiritual schools of thought is, what better thing to submit to than the creation force of the universe? Money? Government, the culture, your own desires? Degeneracy and lack of morals is commonly found in godless societies. The normalization of recreational drugs, hypersexualization, music about popping a cap in the ops, the open disrespect towards religious values. These are all benefits of a free society. In America, you have freedom of speech. That's fine. I was having a conversation with a Korean guy in Seoul who had traveled to about 50 countries. He told me, in a way, you Americans have too much freedom. It can be used for good, but also for the worse. It's a double-edged sword. Over time, I'm seeing more and more examples of what he meant by that. It was an interesting perspective from an outsider looking at the US. In absolute freedom, there will be some of you who will be influenced by evil 1%, 100%, and everywhere in between. This is the case in every society ever, religious or non-religious. Demons are real. Ever wonder what the ultra-rich and world leaders are doing privately paying respects to Moloch the owl god in California's Bohemian Grove, the god of child sacrifice?
All within the grove be reverent before him. Here is Bohemian shrine, and holy are the pillars of this house. Let them join us in this ritual, and cast your spell over these mortals. Touch their world-blind eyes with very
Here you have the boatman, his face painted up like a skull, bringing the bound body across the water.
When will you learn that me he cannot slay? Year after year he burned in this grove. Well, great sense of all mortal wisdom, great owl of Bohemia, we thank thee for thy adoration.
See the funeral pyre burning with the effigy of a human, or it could be real, ladies and gentlemen.
We can agree that the most influential people on the planet know about classified topics the regular citizen isn't allowed to know about. As much as you may dislike some of them, do you think they're unintelligent people that believe in spirits for the fuck of it? Do you think Jeffrey Epstein and his clients are just mentally ill people with chemical imbalances in their brain that led them to terrorize the most innocent souls on Earth? You can come to your own conclusion. My conclusion is that demons are real. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, so God must be real. Everybody is subconsciously influenced by something. I've definitely had my fair share of negative influences in life, so to combat that, I choose to consciously follow God as much as possible. What will you follow? I'll end on this country on a positive note. This country gave me one of the most powerful passports on Earth, which gave me the privilege of seeing the world. And for that, I'm extremely grateful to be an American. After exploring the US, Europe, Latin America, the Middle East, Asia, I've gotten to compare dozens of different lifestyles people are living around the world to the society I grew up in. America's the greatest country on Earth. I've heard this many times in my life. For some people, yes, it's true. But the best at what specifically? The country with the most opportunities to get rich? Yes. The best country to raise your kids with good morals in a modest society? No. I've come to realize that the answer to what is the best country in the world comes down to you. What do you value? What lifestyle do you want for yourself and your family? For Americans, if the US is your answer, then good for you. You're already living in the best place in the world. If you want to learn about how the other 99% of humans live on Earth, go explore the world and find your tribe. Half of Americans have never left the country, or even have a passport. And so many people tend to never even think about what the other 99% of life has to offer you. As an American, after visiting 15 countries, is America the greatest country on Earth? For my personal path of life, America's not the greatest country on Earth anymore. I circled the planet and stopped in 9 countries. Here are my awards to my top 3 favorite places. 3. Thailand. I was hesitant to mention this country, but after looking at all my Polaroids, the Thailand stack was the tallest. Otherworldly temples, tropical beaches, monkeys, $2 lunches, and making so many foreign friends was quite memorable. I'm definitely up to spend some time of my life in the foreseeable future in this country. I'll try to experience Thailand in a slightly different manner though next time. 2. Amsterdam. The thing that sold me on Amsterdam was the lifestyle. Walking and biking everywhere with everyone and hitting the boats on the water through the city was a lifestyle change I enjoyed more than I expected. It felt more natural than getting into metal boxes every time I left my house in the US. Their style of buildings feel like they actually cared about making their hometown somewhat beautiful. At home, we have a very basic and generic style of building our communities. It can start to feel very bland and repetitive. The weather is shit though the majority of the year because of their constant rain. But I'm looking forward to making Amsterdam a summer home in the near future. 1. Dubai. The award for my #1 favorite place I visited is in the Middle East. For the last couple years, I'd been learning a bit about Eastern world culture, because as a Westerner, I was curious to know how the whole ass other half of humans live their lives, what their beliefs and values are. In November 2022, I arrived in the East for the first time. I had already seen travel YouTubers in the Middle East for the last few years, and was fascinated with how kind these people were to travelers. Offering tea to travelers they'd never met, offering them to stay for dinner, even offering to stay at their houses for the night. Nobody asked me to stay in their home during my time in the Middle East, but I was amazed at their kindness and hospitality. About a year ago, I was at the Stevens Creek Reservoir in Cupertino. I made a stop at a point near the water to go to the bathroom. I parked the car, and on my walk there I saw a Muslim man praying on his prayer mat. So I said Assalamu alaikum. After I came out the bathroom, he invited me to eat with his friends that were grilling at this spot next to the water. I'd never met this man before, yet simply because I said hello to him in an Islamic greeting, they invited me to eat at their table while they celebrated their buddy's birthday at the lake. They told me that they were from Azerbaijan, a Central Asian country close to Iran and Russia. I asked these guys why they were so kind as to invite a stranger to their table to eat a meal. They told me, "These are the teachings of our religion. We're taught to be kind to others." Being kind is a universal trait of everybody regardless of your spiritual beliefs, but I was surprised to see that some of the kindest people I'd ever met in my life were Muslims. Dubai isn't a Muslim country, the UAE. It's been run with Muslim values. Physical manifestations of greatness around me was a reminder to accomplish extraordinary things. It was also super convenient as an English speaker coming to Dubai, where 90% of residents are English-speaking foreigners, just like the US. The extreme level of safety in the city was a great pro as well. Not even once did I feel unsafe here. Before coming here, I thought you had to be a gazillionaire to live in Dubai, but I was surprised to be proven wrong. Yes, Dubai can be expensive, but if you live in the Bay Area, New York, London, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Sydney, you can afford to live in Dubai. I've started to like first world Arab societies more than first world Western societies. Obviously no place on earth is perfect, including Dubai. However, I found the longest list of things I admire about a country here in the UAE, and I'm looking forward to spending my winters here in the future. Flying in a circle around the world was an idea I had when I was in middle school. I intended on doing this monumental, dreamlike journey around the world after I'd finished high school. As a kid, this trip felt like it was a lifetime away. I didn't get the chance to do it shortly after graduating, but I was privileged enough to go to 4 Western European capitals with one of my best friends the summer after senior year. It goes without mention that the world unexpectedly shut down the year after we finished high school and pushed back this dream even more. In 2022, at 21 years old, I circled the planet in 72 days. My first day back in Silicon Valley was the last day of 2022. It was a unique experience to return home at the very beginning of a new year, after checking off one of the biggest items on my bucket list I'd been thinking about for a decade. It's surreal even now, several months later, to think about this massive dream I once longed for half my life is now history. Privilege and gratitude was a topic that often came up during the last year. I've been blessed with so many beautiful experiences in life. This sounds very cheesy, but the things I'm most grateful for really are the simple things. Whenever some bullshit is bothering me, I remind myself that my mom is alive, that my brothers are alive. I got to eat dinner today. I had clean water to drink today. I had a bed to sleep in last night. I woke up for another 24 hours. Life is beautiful when you focus on what you have, rather than what you don't have. In a sense, everything is a double-edged sword, even gratitude. Become too comfortable with your current situation, and it becomes complacency. Gratitude is a tool. The hammer analogy is perfect. You can intelligently use a hammer to build a castle, or you can be an idiot and throw it and shatter a window. Yes, be grateful and appreciate what you already have, but it's important to note, being unsatisfied with our current situation is what took the human race from hunter-gatherers to becoming the most advanced species on Earth. Productively use satisfaction and dissatisfaction as tools. In 2023, my current understanding of what's most important in life as a single young man with no family yet goes like this. First, take care of yourself. Once you've taken care of yourself, look after your family. After fully supporting and providing for your family, help your friends. After helping your friends, give back to your community. And only once you've helped everybody in this order, you can go on to try and help the world.